Good morning, everybody. You got Luke Skywalker here. Got my Luke Skywalker Star Wars mug. One of my favorite characters. If you weren't aware, the name of Luke Skywalker's spacecraft that he used to fly was called the X-Wing Fighter. X-Wing Fighter. It was pretty good. The wings kind of flew apart. And I'm kind of big Star. The heck? I'm kind of a big Star Wars fan. In case you didn't know, I actually still have a couple of my little Star Wars guys from when I was a kid. This is the Luke Skywalker action figure where he was in his X-wing fighter. So that was good. All right, we are going to continue working with cellular structures. Today's kind of an interesting one. There is a oh, I'm gonna close my door. It's noisy downstairs today. There's a reading assignment that starts today. So the video lesson will be followed up by your reading assignment that goes along with these lessons on Google Classroom. There are 2 reading assignments. Today's lesson is the first. So we're going to start off today talking a little bit about these special structures. So when you answer your questions, I want you to make sure that you pay attention to the diagrams that are in there. And the reading assignment is broken up into a couple different parts. The first part are the structures that you're going to be able to see under a compound microscope. And then the second part are the structures that are only visible under electron microscopes, or more visible under electron microscopes, we could say. So there's a couple of special structures that are not found in every cell, but when we look at unicellular organisms, these structures play a big role in them. And one of those structures is called cilia, and the other structure are called flagellum. Now, these structures are important because they're used for single-celled organisms, living things that are only one cell big, or what we call unicellular. They are used for movement. The other thing that they're used for is food acquisition. So cilia are tiny little hairs. So around the cell membrane of a cell, certain cells and certain unicellular organisms will have cilia, tiny little hairs. And what they do is they all kind of go in motion and they work together to usually move water or to propel a living thing around water. Okay, so they're like oars when you see people that are in rowboats and they use the oars and they row the rowboat together. That's what cilia are, tiny little hairs. Flagellum, though, are little tails. And little tails are in some unicellular organisms and also some cells that are fixed in position in other living things, and they are tiny tails. So the tails move in what's called a serpentine motion, and they help to cause these unicellular organisms to be able to move through a water environment. Now, plants versus animals. I want you to pay attention to this on your PowerPoint. Make sure you start looking at what some of the similarities and differences are that you see in the 2 diagrams that I've provided. And we will do a lesson on this at another time. Typically, if you take a look at a plant cell, do I want to do this today? It's a pretty short video. Yeah, anyway, you know what? We'll do it today. Okay, so here's a typical plant cell. Take a look at this one. Again, one of the big differences is there's a cell wall. If you take a look at your diagram, the cell wall is outside of the cell membrane. But in an animal cell, there's only a cell membrane. There's no cell wall. Okay, so the cell membrane lets things in and out. Whoops. And a cell wall provides structure, but usually only in a plant cell. Another thing that you notice is a big difference here is this big whopper of a vacuole in a plant cell. And in an animal cell, if there even are any vacuoles, they're going to be smaller and a lot more, probably more of them, but they'll be smaller. Some animal cells don't even have vacuoles. And another thing that's kind of different between a plant cell and an animal cell, plant cells are going to have these chloroplasts. So here's our chloroplasts. They usually have these circular um, um, structures in them. Those are full of chlorophyll, which trap the sunlight and typically give plant cells their green color, and plants their green color because the pigment is greenish. Animal cells, you won't find any of those chloroplasts in a typical animal cell. Now, there are some algae that are photosynthetic, and there are some unicellular organisms that can create their own energy from the sun because they have chloroplasts, and also some that can also feed on other particles or other living things. So they have two ways to gain their energy, kind of like an animal, kind of like a plant, which is kind of interesting. But more often than not, it's only plant cells will have chloroplasts and are photosynthetic. Another thing that's different between animal cells and plant cells, if you look at the animal cell diagram here, it's kind of circular or irregular in its shape, but most plant cells are boxy or more rectangular in shape. And remember, this would be in 3 dimensions. So if you think of a plant cell, it would be more like a brick, but animal cells would be more like spheres, okay, or baseballs, that type of a thing. So there are a couple other subtle differences. I think I'll let you attack that during the reading assignment instead of this one. So have fun with plant versus animal cells. Here's a couple pictures. So again, here are the chloroplasts in an actual animal cell. You can spot because of the boxy shape here. You can see the cell wall and the cell membrane. So cell walls separating one cell from the other. And here's an animal cell, a little bit more of a circular shape and a little bit easier to spot. And again, no cell wall. So here are some other diagrams. You should take a look at them. You'll also notice that they both have nuclei. They both have mitochondria. They both have endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi apparatus. The reason for that is because animals and plants are both living things, and they need to have those structures doing their job to be able to stay alive. So I think that's it for today's lesson. Please pay attention to the reading assignments that go along with this part. I hope you enjoyed learning about the organelles this week. And next week, we will begin the process of diagramming and drawing plant and animal cells. And I'm going to give you your main assignment, the big project that goes along with this section. Okay, I will give you an idea of how I want you to post it, and I'll give you an idea of how I want you to go about doing it. Usually I do it as a poster. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do with it this time because I have to be able to collect your posters somehow. So, yeah. Anyways, have a good day. Thanks again. And we will talk next class. Well, I'll talk. You might talk too, but I can't hear you if you're talking to me. I can tell. Some of you have your hands raised there and you're wondering, well, why doesn't he answer my question? It's because you're not emailing me. Email me or send me your questions. And excellent job keeping up with the assignments. Take care. Have a good day. This is Mr. Neumann signing off. Stop recording.